Board of Education School Board meeting. Welcome to everyone out there for coming out tonight. We appreciate you coming in and joining us for our meeting. Before we get started and do roll call, I would like to introduce Mrs. Amy Sleet. She is our newest school board member. We went through quite a process over the last couple of months, and we were able to interview and meet a lot of new people, and it was a great process. But we wanted to introduce Amy and welcome you to the school board. So thank you for your service. And now we can do roll call.
All right, Mrs. Berger?
Here.
Dr. Savignano?
Here.
Mrs. Slate?
Here.
Ms. Stricker?
Here.
Mrs. Sullivan?
Here.
Okay, on to our recognition of guests. We have Brad Bentley here this evening with the Roy L. Chapman Outstanding Teacher of the State Agency Children Award. So welcome this evening, Brad, and Dr. Stacy will go from there.
All right, so first of all, it's always great to do a recommendation, especially for someone of such passion for what he does as Mr. Bentley. I will be very honest that if I was a principal in our elementary or high school, I would adamantly be trying to recruit Mr. Bentley away from Guardian Angel. But this is the thing I love about him. He has a passion for those children and a passion for doing that work. So as much as I would like to recruit, I have to look at anyone who has who has that type of passion for what they do. Brad has served as a teacher at Guardian Angel for as long as I've been here and several years before that. He also coaches rec ball over and to disadvantaged children and several other things that he needs to be commended for. But I have the opportunity to announce. And Ms. Benson, I'm sorry you're not up here doing the announcement, but I have the pleasure of announcing him as the KETSAC Outstanding Teacher of State Agency Children for the state of Kentucky. So Brad, if you would come forward, so the board there.
Thank you so much. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
As he's finishing up,
Happy for you.
this is my second opportunity to oversee a state agency or a state facility, and I will tell you that it takes a very special person to maintain any length of time in a facility like we have at Guardian Angel. Kids come in with so many immense problems that I consider it a true blessing to have somebody like Brad that shows up every day to try to help kids get through the disadvantages and the heartbreak that they have that most of our kids don't understand. So Brad, again, I can't thank you enough, and Miss Nikki Benson, who is the principal of Guardian Angel, is here tonight as well. Nikki, we thank you. That is a tough position, so thank you guys. So. And I will say, since some of my buddies from around the state are watching, most of y'all didn't even know that Beechwood has a state agency facility, and we're very proud to have that honor. So that's that.
Okay, thank you. Okay, on to our public comment. I will call each person's name up. They can sit in that chair right over there by the microphone, and it's 3 minutes. And Dr. Stacy will be keeping that time, so.
Just be mindful. Guys, we know you're all passionate about the topic tonight, but just be mindful that we do have time constraints. I won't hammer the gavel or throw stuff, I promise, but just try to help us out. So the first one.
Okay, Michael Smith.
How many parents want their children treated like prisoners at Guantanamo Bay? In a 2009 documentary, The Shock Doctrine, the narrator details out a tactic used by the intelligence personnel on prisoners at Guantanamo Bay taken from the 1963 Kubark Manual of Counterintelligence and Interrogation. Take a look at this picture where they mask up and create 6 feet of social distancing between the prisoners. A quote during this scene states, "Isolation is both physical and psychological. It must be maintained from the moment of apprehension. The capacity for resistance is diminished by disorientation. Prisoners should maintain silence at all times. They should never be allowed to speak to one another." To me, this sounds exactly like what we're doing to our children and what we did the past year. Dr. Stacy and board members, thank you for the opportunity to speak today. Ms. Sleet, welcome. I know you'll be a positive addition to the board. Thank you to those board members remaining from last year for ignoring all my letters and emails since the start of March 2020. Because of that and your willful violations of state law by continuing to ignore my 2 Freedom of Information Act requests I sent to the district, you have created a drive and determination in me to make sure that it is us, the parents, and our students who lead this fight to take back control of our education system, staying informed, and by being vocal leaders for change. After my family and I were fooled by the initial 15 days to slow the spread, I made a commitment to my children to do everything in my power to get informed, to stay informed, and to fight for their rights, their safety, and their future. I do understand that none of you are experts on COVID-19, masks, vaccines, state and federal policies, the CDC, the FDA, or any number of additional new items that you have had to encounter over this past year. You, like many other school boards, look to the experts to help make informed decisions, which you as a district or board can then just copy and paste into our daily lives. One size does not fit all. The problem with universal mandates from a state or federal level is that they take more accurate and better informed control away from local leaders like yourself. But they also provide a convenient shield for local leadership, which can then be used as an easy scapegoat to avoid making difficult decisions simply by stating, "Sorry, it's a mandate and we are required to follow it." You may disagree, but after spending several hundred hours over this past year since early January, researching, reading books, studies, articles, watching interviews, following informed doctors, nurses, and other medical experts, I would consider myself to be highly informed. I have a hard drive with over 2 terabytes of data, the majority of which I have read or watched in full. This information documents how the science, the data, the expert opinion has changed since before the pandemic, and how it has conveniently been crafted over time to fit in the various political motivations and schemes devised from both political parties. Much of this information has been wiped from the internet and social media by our own Ministry of Public Enlightenment and Propaganda, Big Tech, and all their fact checkers. You can go back and review every letter and email that I sent you. You will realize that I was right about everything I mentioned. My letters were well thought out and entirely sourced with provided references and links to factual information I used to form my thoughts. Each letter took several days to create because as a lifelong member of Fort Mitchell, a Beechwood graduate, and a parent with 4 children of my own at this school, I truly thought my knowledge and
4
efforts
minutes.
could be invaluable to aid in your decision making. I was wrong. Looking back, I now realize that stubbornness and arrogance are difficult roadblocks to overcome. No one cares more about our children, their safety, their well-being, their education, and their future more than us, the parents. I believe that you let us down by rolling out the red carpet for this new normal in early July of 2020 and letting our political leaders in the state and federal government and the agencies operating within it to dictate control of every aspect of our lives. I believe the district has continued to take the low road and is comfortable being a follower and not the leader you would expect from a great institution. While I do understand that state and federal mandates must be followed, other than Dr. Stacy voicing concerns from time to time, I have not seen any board member voice any opposition to these mandates. None of you, in my opinion, has taken a leadership role to get informed on true science and about the real data, nor have you increased advocacy for our children by ignoring parents and systematically shutting them out of providing input, which is contrary to the official
5
narrative.
minutes.
But this is America. This is not communist China or a third world country rife with corruption. While our country's political leadership and its corporate regulatory structure are ripe with corruption, we are in an enviable position. We have a Constitution which has endured over 230 years, including many of history's darkest times, and it will continue to do so through this period of great reset. We have a nation protected by God and driven by free will and ruled by its people. I have hope. I'm starting to see cracks in the narrative, and many people are waking up to what's really going on in this world. They realize now may be our last chance to dig in our heels and take a stand. We must do it. We must stand strong, and we must be united against this evil. Voluntary mask and voluntary vaccines, please.
Thank you very much.
Okay, the next person is Rodrigo Villalba.
Good afternoon, members of the board. Good afternoon, everybody. I come today just to express my support on adopting recommendations by the CDC, by American Academy of Pediatrics, Kentucky Department of Health, and even Cincinnati Children's. I know it's been hard myself, just looking at the numbers, in May, June, everything seemed looking, trending very, very well. I'm sorry, I'll try to speak louder. Can this be put on? Okay, is this better?
At least they can hear you at home. That's good. That's fine.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So yeah, I myself was looking forward to a much better fall, but unfortunately numbers, nationwide are not trending well. Already some areas are being, hospitals are being overcrowded in quite a few areas. Cases are starting to come up over here. Last year, with a combination of measures taken locally, both in the Ohio side, which is very close to us, and the Kentucky side, combined with what Beechwood did, create a fairly uneventful year, save a few cases, which I think was very well considered the overall toll the pandemic has taken on this past year. So I know that a decision or a plan is going to be communicated soon. I hope it includes some of those guidelines, and I also would like to see if invite the school as a whole to become even a more active part of just trying to get everybody to work together for that goal. This whole past year and a half has been very, very divisive for everybody. Things have devolved, public health has turned political, and that's not supposed to be the case. So hopefully, I'm expressing my hope that beyond the measures that Beechwood as a school can take steps to work together as a community. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Andrew Elliott.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, board. My name is Andrew Elliott. Background on myself, I am an emergency medicine physician. I do practice here locally. Prior to that, I did have a naval scholarship, and I'd had some time with the Navy and spent time in Afghanistan, and I've now been practicing here for a little over 7 years. My son is going into the first grade next year. So I'm here today to recommend, if not urge, that we do continue with a mask requirement until the situation kind of steadies itself and improves. This would be in alignment with numerous medical societies and institutions that include, American Academy of Pediatrics, the CDC, Cincinnati Children's Hospital, and then local universities as well doing that. This would also include hand washing, distancing, what we did last year. I have seen the effects of this virus firsthand, and frankly, I'm a little terrified to see what it can potentially do if left unfettered to just spread amongst people indoors without masks. I agree completely that in-person learning is our goal. It should be our goal. and that is best as opposed to remote virtual learning. So if a mask mandate is not in place or a requirement that indoor learners have a mask on, then we put all of our kids at risk, which in turn puts our community at risk, and it will inevitably lead to more interruptions in their education. This would be because of, a kid has a fever, well, they have to then go home, they have to get tested, somebody tests positive for COVID, then they have to trace, and the students around him or her would then also have to be in quarantine, and there isn't a virtual option. So I think it's going to lead to more disruptions in the learning as opposed to requiring the mask until things improve. Then you tack on influenza season, RSV, all the other winter viruses that are here every year. I'm just concerned about the winter months. So this Delta variant now is the predominant strain both nationally and locally. It's more transmissible. It's affecting kids much more so than the original SARS-CoV-2 virus did. So looking at, say, the southern states where it's already kind of flourishing, I guess if that's the right word, we're already seeing their pediatric hospitals becoming overwhelmed, becoming full, having to transport patients to other states or cities, and I don't want to see us get there. And I think the best way to try to limit that possibility is by requiring the masks and the hand washing and distancing that we did last year. Currently, Kentucky has 15.9% of its cases are pediatrics. We've already had 2 deaths. Nationwide, there have been over 4.2 million cases of pediatric COVID-19. There have been approximately 400 pediatric deaths. This is before school season in which the potential for not masking occurs. So unfortunately, those numbers, I think, have the potential to go up, but we also have the potential to drive that down. Lastly, we were able to do this safely for in-person learning last year. And that's because of what you all did, what all the schools did, distancing, hand hygiene, you know the drill. So now we have a variant of this same virus that is more transmissible, affecting kids more so. And so it just seems counterintuitive to me that we would then go backwards and release any sort of requirements and have the potential for disaster. So until, more teens and adults are able to get vaccinated, till maybe vaccines approved for children, sometime soon, I think we need to follow the advice of every expert body in society that there is and continue with the mask requirement until we learn otherwise. Beechwood Independent Schools on their website has 4 core principles, one of which is, quote, providing a safe environment for learning. I hope we adhere to that principle and continue to keep this place safe and our children safe. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Chris Corba?
Board, thanks for the opportunity. My name's Chris Corba. Heck of a way to kick off that first meeting before the school season, right? Some excellent testimonials so far and people giving their viewpoint. I'll keep it short and keep it sweet to concede some of my time to others. I just asked that the masking requirement would be optional. There's nothing keeping those that would like to do it from doing it now. I think that's the appropriate course of action. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Brandon Clark?
Board members, Dr. Stacy, my name is Brandon Clark. I have 2 daughters that attend Beechwood Elementary. My 6-year-old will be in the 1st grade, and my 8-year-old will be in the 3rd grade. I am here to stand up and speak up for my daughters. We support the current Beechwood masking policy. On June 8th, 2021, the current masking policy went into effect. This policy is reasonable and liberating. It gives parents and students the freedom to choose to wear a mask or not to wear a mask. The health and safety of our family is our responsibility. The government overreach of the last 18 months is un-American. We were forced to mask our children for 7 hours a day to receive in-school education, which our taxes help support. No one in government or on this school board cares more about my family's health than I. In a free society, we would have the right to use our brains to make informed decisions about the well-being of our children. In the last 18 months, we have been given a glimpse of what it looks like to live in a society which is not free. Businesses were closed, schools were closed, People were divided into classes and allowed to work only if deemed essential by government. We were told that these things were necessary because we needed 2 weeks to slow the spread. Fast forward a year and a half, and we have hospitals telling the very frontline workers that were hailed as heroes for their work during COVID that they must take a non-FDA approved shot or they will be terminated. A lot has happened and changed since 2019. My family moved to Fort Mitchell and built a house in 2017 so that we could send our girls to this school. My kids love attending Beechwood. They absolutely love it. All of their teachers have been phenomenal. I smile when I see Mr. Ashley typing in the numbers as he walks the carpool line. The only complaint that I have in my 3 years at Beechwood is the forced masking of my girls to attend class. I am not opposed to anyone choosing to wear a face mask to school. That is their right. I am opposed to any government or governing body forcing my 6- and 8-year-old daughters to wear a face mask as a requirement to attend class. I am opposed to requiring teachers or anyone else in this school to wear a face mask as protection from COVID. We have learned plenty since all this began. This should be a personal choice. Children have almost zero risk of death should they contract COVID-19 or the Delta variant. Since the beginning of time, people have contracted viruses. Viruses mutate and they spread. When a virus mutates, it becomes more transmissible and less lethal. According to data, healthy children age 18 and under who contract COVID have a 99.998% chance of survival. COVID poses very little risk to the students at Beechwood School. Please allow parents, students, and teachers the freedom of choice to wear a mask or not to wear a mask during the school year. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Emily Wolf.
Hello, my name's Emily Wolf. I'm a parent here at Beechwood. I've been living in Fort Mitchell since 2008. I am also a board-certified emergency physician who practices locally. And I have 3 children that go to school here, from a child that will be entering 1st grade to one that will be entering 6th grade. And I think that all the people here, I think we can agree on a few things, and that perhaps we should be reminded that we have some common ground here. I believe that all of us think that in-person school should be our priority for our students, and that as many days as we can keep our students in school should be our goal. And I think that we can probably all start with that as our base point. I think that we would all also agree that we would like that environment and our children to remain as safe and as healthy as possible. I think we start to become divided on how that happens. And that is difficult, and I think certainly over the past year and a half, I've also been in a position at our hospital locally where I've been the department chair of emergency medicine and have been involved very significantly in the COVID-19 response here locally. I am in weekly to, depending on how the cases are going, less frequent contact with the health department. So I'm very aware of what the local incidence rates are, what our vaccination coverage is, and what the recommendations are, and also the scientific literature that is going on with this disease process. And I also grant that watching science unfold for everyone as it happens and as it changes, which is what science does, is hard for people to interpret, and they often get confused in that, and I understand that. And I understand that people want their children to be safe. But the fact of the matter is when the school board made the decision in early June to lift the mask mandate and make it voluntary, our disease incidence was very low locally. There was not very much COVID circulating. It was prior to the Delta variant showing up here. In our emergency departments, our positivity rate that week that the mask mandate came off at this school was about 3.7%. This past week at our hospitals, our percent positivity rate for COVID tests, meaning every test that we run out of our emergency departments, is close to 20% positive. The disease incidence is increasing. The age of the people that are being diagnosed are much younger. Our vaccine coverage for our 12 to 18-year-olds, which are eligible for a vaccine in our area, the Northern Kentucky area, is about 26 to 28%. And those under 12 are not eligible. We have a couple things at our disposal to try to keep our kids safe. Masking is not perfect. Neither are wearing helmets on your bicycle, neither is wearing seat belts in a car. We still recommend those things for our children. In fact, some of those are laws. The difference between some of those safety measures that we all think are pretty normal is that my choice for my child to wear a helmet does not affect another child's health and well-being if they choose not to wear a helmet. Masking works best if it's done universally. Masking by me is more protective for all of you than it is for me. I wear a mask to protect you. You wear a mask to protect me. Yes, there are different levels of masks and there's various things, but for the most part, the mask that we're talking about our children wearing it's a communal benefit. Additionally, we already have examples of this in our classroom. We have rules at Beechwood so that we can stay safe. If my child is going to eat in the classroom, my child is not allowed to bring peanut products to the classroom because of the very low likelihood that someone in his class or her class may have a peanut allergy. And then the exceedingly low chance that that child may come in contact with my child's peanut butter sandwich. And we still don't let them do that because there's a risk that my child's peanut butter sandwich could cause ill harm to another student. It's theoretical.
4 minutes.
I will finish up. I'm sorry for going over. We do that with our snack safely list. There's precedence for this. And the best choice is to err on the side of safety and health and life and to request masks to be worn by all.
Thank you.
Betty Douglas?
Good evening, Dr. Stacy and the board and parents who are here. My name is Betty Douglas. I have 2 children going into the 3rd grade. And I've come here to ask you to support all students being masked this fall. This is not the same virus that we encountered last year. The Delta variant of the COVID virus is much more contagious, up to 1,000 times more contagious than the virus we encountered last year. There were 397 new cases this weekend in Northern Kentucky and 1 death. There has been an average in the United States of 194 children per day in the country admitted to hospitals, so it is affecting children, unlike the previous variants. And we know how to do this. We know how to protect our children, but we all breathe the same air in the classroom. So if only the children who want to mask, it's not the same level of protection as if everyone masks. It also opens up the possibility of bullying, of singling some students out for what they believe is the safest thing for them and their families. And this is not forever. I don't think anyone enjoys wearing a mask, to say the least. This is only until everyone could have the opportunity to be vaccinated if they want to be. Right now, children under 12 cannot receive the vaccination. And until the numbers could go down. The University of Nebraska Medical Center, which has one of the best epidemiological programs in the country, recommends under 7 per 100,000 per day incidence rate. Right now, we're around 21 per 100,000 in Kenton County. We are a STEM school. We want our students to accelerate in science. How can we say that unless we actually listen to the doctors who are telling us this is very important? We need to set that example of listening to science for our children. Optional is not enough because we share the air together. And living in a free society has to include caring for your neighbor, or it becomes every person for themselves, which is not the definition of community. Thank you for protecting our children last year, and I hope that the same measures or similar measures to what you did last year will be enacted again: masking, distancing, cleaning. Thank you very much for my time.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you, everyone, for your comments. And we'll go on to our discussion and action agenda. Take a motion for the Council for Better Education to join the lawsuit for the Council for Better Education.
I'll make the motion to approve for the Beechwood Board of Education to join the lawsuit with the Council for Better of Education in opposition of HB 563.
I'll second.
So, as part of House Bill 563, the Council for Better Education has filed a lawsuit challenging the tax credit portion. And as a public school entity, everyone is being asked to join that lawsuit. I mean, it probably doesn't have a massive effect on us one way or the other, but it's right at 50 cents a student, which is a very small cost. I think my recommendation is to approve that. The negative impact on Beechwood, especially being a privileged district in the eyes of the rest of the state, I think would have a more detrimental effect than any other aspect of the bill. As also as a Board of Ed, KSBA is requesting that you also file that as a public institution or join as a public institution, and the portion of local dollars being sent to private versus their opinion that should stay in public. Be more than happy to answer any questions.
Are they trying to, in the lawsuit, are they trying to separate some of the items that are lumped into that bill?
Yeah, so they're not challenging the open borders, which probably has a larger impact for us as an institution. They're not separating that out because there's no legal bias or there's no legal precedent. And Jeremy, please chime in here as I go through. They think that it's an easier path on the tax credit, which is actually the funding mandate mechanism that has more of an impact and probably more of a true challenge to the interpretation of the law.
Especially in that the funding portion is constitutional.
Yes.
The districts is statutory. So theoretically, the General Assembly decides what statute or what district borders are. They have that authority, whereas the funding portion is directly tied to the Constitution.
So, I mean, that's my recommendation. I'm only aware of 4 boards of ed that have not joined in on that, and that's over the other side. They're in such a battle over students from the county to the independent that they're just, not willing to even look at the other side. No. Any other questions?
Anybody have any questions?
No.
All right.
Okay.
Ready, Mrs. Berger?
Yes.
Dr. Salmiano?
Yes.
Mrs. Slate?
Yes.
Ms. Stricker?
Yes.
Mrs. Sullivan?
Yes.
Okay, motion carries. On to our next item is the Return to School COVID Response Plan. A motion to approve the Return to School COVID Plan and to provide the superintendent the flexibility to update the plan based on laws and mandates.
I'll go ahead and make the motion to approve the Return to School COVID Plan and to provide the superintendent the flexibility to update the plan based on laws and mandates.
I'll second.
All right, so just give me a second to kind of start. First of all, I would like to thank everybody that spoke. Number one, I've watched a couple of these board meetings where they were not very civil. So even though many of you are on opposite ends of the spectrum, thank you for maintaining that level of civility. That's really awesome to see, and I think that's one of the things I enjoy about being superintendent here. Second thing, I'd also like to thank you for putting a visual to my email inbox over the last 18 months. I literally can sit from one minute to the next and open up one meeting email, and it's follow the science, and then open up the other email and it's follow the science, and my science is more scientific than the other side's science, and whatever. So that's really hard, and I'll be honest with you, I've done a lot of research for this opinion, but my research has also included multiple attorneys across the state, our liability carrier who oversees our liability insurance and actually who covers the board and myself anytime we're sued, as well as peers, other superintendents, as well as multiple doctors. And I can tell you at the end of that, I think I may be more confused than I was when I started, because there are doctors on both sides of this. There are a few attorneys on both sides of this, and there are superintendents across the state that are on both sides of this as well. But that's still not the basis for my recommendation. That's just the homework that I've also done on my end. My recommendation comes more from the legal stance, and I've had many conversations with Jeremy, our board attorney, as well as other attorneys across the state. Last year, the governor made several mandates through an executive order. When that executive order was put into place, we were told that we would lose our certificates as superintendents, and boards could even be removed from their seats if they opposed it. Later on, the Kentucky Supreme Court upheld the governor's ability to make an executive order during a time of pandemic. And since the legislators come back and put a 30-day cap on that executive order ability. So any executive orders can still be put into place, but after 30 days, the legislature has to be called into a special session. This ruling by the Kentucky Supreme Court made the Kentucky Department of Public Health, the Northern Kentucky Department of Public Health, and the governor the decision makers on anything and all things public health related. And because no statute or regulation specifically gives school districts the authority to make public health policy, doing so may in fact waive the board's immunity to suits. Therefore, it is my opinion and recommendation to the board that they continue to maintain oversight for the things that we have legal authority over, unless we have local data, local school data that causes us to defy a recommendation and or a mandate. And with that being said, right now the governor's statement still has should, which legally equates to a recommendation. If it changes to shall, then that changes to a mandate. So I stick to, and I will say, I have many conversations with the board. I tell them all the time, I'm the one person that's not afforded an opinion. I get paid to make a recommendation based on the legal ramifications and the impact to our community. And over the time of this next year, just like last year, I may make people on both sides of the situation mad, but I'll maintain that legal stance. Based on the Kentucky Supreme Court, I don't know that you have a choice to maintain your legal standing based on the Kentucky Supreme Court ruling. I don't know that you have a choice but to follow a recommendation when a recommendation's given and to follow a mandate when a mandate's given. And I know a lot of people aren't going to like that, but until something changes with a court ruling, the Kentucky Supreme Court made a pretty definitive statement during the pandemic in relation to the outcomes of said mandates and recommendations. So as we move in, it's just to kind of open it up. As we move into questions from the board, Jeremy is here as well to help. Jeremy, and is there anything you would add just to my opening?
I would point out that the school boards in the state of Kentucky are creatures of statute. There's a statute that creates a school board, that tells the school board what it can do, what it cannot do, and those are hard and fast rules. And in conjunction with what you've been saying, the decisions about public health orders are granted to other parties, not school districts. That might seem a little strange in the times we're living in relative to, safety, that word safety that always comes up. But the fact of the matter is statutorily, the school district is limited into the types of decisions and policies it may implement. And on the specific issue of public health orders, that's left to the state public health agency, the local public health district, and as you've been saying, the governor has a 30-day power, and then the General Assembly has to be convened and take over from there. And there is very concrete realities about where school districts' authorities begin and end. And that's what we live with in the state of Kentucky. And until those are changed, those are the rules by which the school districts have to play by or follow.
And this is, just so the board's clear, this is not just mask. We're also talking about quarantines as well. So on one side, if there's not a mandate to quarantine a close contact, and you have no mandate or law, and on the other side you have FAPE, IDA, and several other federal laws, we could very easily get ourselves into a position to where you're opening yourself up to more lawsuits on one side than the other. And again, this is not me making a public health statement. I really am utterly confused by a couple of the different things that I'm being told. And I can only say that I think I'm put together enough to realize that I don't know enough to make those kind of calls. But as long as the public health maintains a recommendation, I'm going to hold to a recommendation on both of those areas. And however, I always tell you, you'll always have the ability to not, I don't get a vote. You all make the vote. But that's about as basic as I can put it for you, unless you have specific questions. And for Jeremy or myself. Also, our liability carrier echoed the same sentiment, that you're most protected by following a recommendation or following the mandate, that when you step outside in an area that you don't necessarily have law, statute, regulation, or any other backing, that's when you become more susceptible to liability.
So Jeremy, when you talk about a 30-day mandate that the governor has the power, is that consecutive? Can he do that every 30 days, or is that what's being questioned right now at the Supreme Court?
Historically, that would be considered a 30-day running continuous until such time. Day 1 to day 30 running continuously.
Mm-hmm.
Generally, that is how that has been interpreted over time. I mean, their decision, on the original mandate is the law of the land right now, and I don't think it'll be reasonably interpreted as he can pick and choose 30 days and change his calendar.
I personally think it's very easy that from most school boards, they're talking more about the mask than the quarantine.
Mm-hmm.
And masks are so new, there's not a lot of case, there's not anything out there. The quarantines is no different than a suspension without cause, without due process. There's a lot of federal law and federal case law that makes me very, very much worried in absence of local data.
And that's probably more of a case-by-case basis based on local data and the status that you're in that specific incident. Whereas a mask mandate is very, very cut and dry. The quarantine is probably a little more gray area. And I think some of well, I know some of the information currently with the local health department is a little more like a mandate when it comes to quarantines right now. And certainly, there's a lot more legal authority to follow that based on data from a particular situation as opposed to a one-size-fits-all mandate, so to speak.
See, I was guilty right there. I let my personal opinion sneak out a little bit, so I apologize.
So when we're talking the recommendation, what does that look like for our district starting school next week?
The recommendation looks like, as far as looks like, then it maintains parent choice on mask, and then we hammer down on mitigation from just like we did last year, consistent hand washing, double checking all ventilation systems, adding fans. All these different windows, doors, anything to increase ventilation, which I think is was successful last year. As well as distancing when possible. Obviously we can't have 5 days 100% and maintain 6 feet, because we don't have the shared facilities. We have shared facilities with all 3 schools, but that would be that's what the recommendation looks like from a practical standpoint.
And will there be a virtual option?
I will recommend tonight in other business that we put, because I know no matter what final thing that you do or what change you may be forced to make, there will be pressure, and I'm just going to go ahead and say it's my recommendation to go ahead and put a virtual option back in place. I don't know that we have a choice.
And moving forward, some type of, committee to.
Yeah, in other business, I will ask that the board puts a limited, a 1-year committee, allows us to put together a public health and safety committee. I would like to formally invite a few doctors and Jeremy and the Northern Kentucky Health Department. It would be nice if we could work out a couple of the issues a little bit more in advance. That would be great. And as we move through this, I think we're really going to have to look at school data specifically in relation. That's how we made it through last year, with school data, other than when we were mandated to close. I still to this day think that was the biggest, I felt good about what we were doing and how we were doing it. But again, based on the Kentucky Supreme Court, a mandate is said to be as good as law. And I think I always have to remember that my opinion isn't anything when it comes to law or Kentucky Supreme Court.
Does anyone have any other questions?
No.
No?
The other thing that I just want to make sure that we need to really highlight is the exception is if local data or local numbers were to be some, way out of line, and then the Northern Kentucky Health Department, would have even more of a say probably than the governor. They can do a whole lot. One reason why I'm not pushing back on that tonight, as far as I know, we've had 4 positive cases over the course of the summer with our student body. So it's hard for me to come back and say tonight that school data is driving me in a different direction. And none of the 4 have caused a direct, anyone who has been quarantined or anyone has been in close contact has not had a positive test from that. So I just want to make sure that, when we say local data can drive a decision, the local data doesn't necessarily point me to be able to recommend differently than what our legal opinion is from Mr. Dieters.
We'll keep our daily dashboard like we did last year.
Right now, we're not mandated to keep it up like we were last year, but we are absolutely continuing to track positive cases, 100%.
For local, for our data as well.
If the board wants us to continue to make that public, that now that now as a local decision, not a state mandate.
I mean, I think I'd like to see it in regards to comparison to what's going on in the rest of the county, knowing that we're keeping tabs on it, because I think the dashboard, if you didn't follow it last year, I highly recommend it. You're looking at a daily data stream of what's going on. If we can control it in our environment, I mean, I know what the county is gonna have, whatever their numbers are, it's gonna sway the health department to make a mandate or any recommendations. So I feel that we should just go ahead and make that available to the community.
Okay. The other question that I have specifically, I am recommending that we do testing, because if we can speed up the quarantine process by a negative test, then I think we should look at doing that testing in-house. The big question though, and big when I say financial, I mean, the board spent a very large amount of money, and I know there's some opportunities to have free testing, but do you want to continue testing every kid that's symptomatic, or are we only testing close contacts?
Did we do everybody last year that was symptomatic?
We did. We were a faster turnaround than your doctor's office. I mean, we had a less than a 24-hour turnaround on testing, but every test was $55, and you hit about 6 figures in cost on testing. Now, like I said, there are some potential, and we're working on some free options, and I think that's up to you. It doesn't have to be a decision tonight. I mean, that's not that would just be a yeah. I mean, that's something that I can do based on what you put into place last year. But that's just something to, publicly, and I appreciated the fact that we could test anybody immediately. I appreciated the fact that if that can help us keep kids in school, then I'm all for it. I just want to make sure you continue. If we can't work out and finalize that free testing, that is $55 a test, which I'm okay with.
It's worth every penny.
Okay.
Could I pose a question? Dr. Wolf, may I ask you a question? Is there a specific test for the variant, for the Delta variant, or is it just a COVID test across the board?
Currently, all variants should test positive with the testing we have available. We don't, there is random screening of the samples locally pulled by the state health department, and then once there's so many of the variants, it's genetic sequencing, and then they can presume what the prevalence is. But Delta variant should test positive on all this. There are different qualities of tests, and just on the health department call this morning, I'll interject that there are supposed to be state available funding for schools to do testing. The health department says that I think there's some sort of process we have to go through to get it, but as of 11 o'clock this morning.
Thank you very much.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
And we've started that process, but there's still some hoops for us as well.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Dedis, is there anything else that you think I may have missed in relation to the recommendation or the plan?
No, I think you covered it.
Okay.
And we're still gonna keep the standard of washing, cleaning procedures that we had last year.
Every mitigation strategy that we had in place last year obviously is back with vengeance. And so we are one custodian down. Another part of the whole process of COVID, staffing has become even more of a challenge than it was before. However, we'll continue to look at being creative in the way that we've done that in the past. And we think we have some people interested in several different part-time positions. Seem like a lot of the kids that go into college like coming back and playing custodian on the side. So they've really kept us in good position. We'll continue with all the different mitigations as far as the cleaning devices, the Clorox sprayer, all of that will be in play. Now, there is one element that comes into a superintendent. If attendance were to drop below a certain level, then it becomes a funding issue. There is a procedure and background through that I could make a call about school, that is definitely something that is still in place.
But
So if
that's
that
not-
were the case, would you have an option to go to NTI for like a couple days in a row or a week, or I don't know what the state,
Yeah,
the
we're
state hasn't
still,
given.
remember, oh, sorry. Remember, we're still always over the number of days, and we're well over the required hours as far as minimums for the state. I mean, so, in most cases, if, like, the flu is causing an attendance rate that makes it problematic, you take an extended weekend, and you recoup, and then you come back at it. And you either waive those days as part of that, you know, and you definitely have the ability with the different COVID measures, because right now there's still a limit of 10 NTI days. And I think the one thing that people can agree on both sides is that NTI was not uber successful anywhere. And I think we did it better than most, because we had the fortunate to have every kid, and, you know, any kid who didn't have Wi-Fi, we bought a hotspot. So really, we were 100% with a computer and 100% with connectivity, and most places across the state paled in comparison. I mean, some had, you know, they were hoping to get a 50% participation rate over the course of a week. It's not one kid one out of two kids every day. It was one or two kids every week that would check in, and then other places lost kids for the whole year. And if it's okay, the best, as far as our team, the best online curriculum with all the bells and whistles is the Pearson. You know, with actually has, you know, teachers teaching on the, you know, because we don't have staff, because we're back 100%. We don't have staff to put towards that like we did last year. So I think we need to upgrade to where they're actually having teachers present the lessons. And that's not cheap, but, you know, as far as our standard to maintain the best, you know, that would be my recommendation for the online curriculum.
And how soon will all this information go out to families? Well, I'm just saying, I mean, school starts next week, so that's why.
I realize that, and we realize that, and, I mean, let's not forget, how many times did we make a decision last year?
Well, that's
only
true.
to be thrown a curveball the day before school starts. I mean, so let's not kid ourselves that we may not be back here having another conversation. I mean, we learned enough from last year to know that sometimes things are taken out of your hands last minute. On both sides, you know, I mean, like, just is what it is.
Okay. Anyone have any questions?
No.
Go ahead.
So, and when we finish the meeting, after you all vote, if you approve, we'll deploy the recommendation. We are still continuing to push on the quarantine. I don't know what'll, you know, because the moment you approve, we also send the plan to the Northern Kentucky Health Department. Legally, they have the ability to strike anything that you've done. They haven't done that up until this time, since the mandate has been rescinded. Second of all, we have to continue looking at the quarantine and how federal law versus local and you know, gray recommendations / mandates are, because that continues to be, and I let my personal opinion come out. You know, we quarantine kids, and I run the risk as your advisor, trying to determine which is your greater loss, quarantining a kid with no symptoms versus federal law and state attendance laws for parents. And we'll continue down that path. If something comes up, I may even ask that you call a special meeting for that.
So all mandates from last year have been rescinded, so these are just recommendations currently,
Right,
except
so
for the bus.
the healthy, you know, the executive order was rescinded.
Except for school buses,
Which is
because they're caught caught up is the wrong word, but they're included in the federal mandate of all public transportation.
And again, a New York subway versus a school bus for us just on a trip. But again, we go back to that wall piece. I would be careful about voting against the federal law, you know, before we're back in. a requirement. Hasn't become law yet. Any other questions? I doubt the topic's over for the year.
It's not.
So this is our first decision, your all's first decision. And I do think the mitigation strategies are crucial. We've got to preach mitigation because the washing the hands, the ventilation, the different aspects that we can do, we'll do the very, very, very best of our ability. All right?
Ready?
Yeah.
Mrs. Berger?
Yes.
Dr. Saviano?
Yes.
Mrs. Slate?
Yes.
Ms. Stricker?
Yes.
Mrs. Sullivan?
Yes.
Okay, motion carries. On to our consent agenda. Take a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll make the motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
And I did make the recommendation that we allow the Spartans to use the facility. We didn't have any external use last year. They requested 4 dates. One was Sunday, which gave us a good practice run for home events. I'll continue to support that unless something changes as far as something that come down the pike. But I do hope and feel like we'll be able to maintain that. And just another one that's not necessarily on there very often at all. We do have, which is rare for us. I'm not sure I've ever, maybe once, recommended emergency certification. But we do have someone who has a master's in Spanish, and as opposed to a regular teaching certification. We hired 2 Spanish teachers this summer, which is like winning the lottery in our world. But the second one has a Spanish major and is in school to be a teacher. I think with the major, that is plenty enough to suffice just teaching a whole class load of Spanish 1 with an experienced teacher as her partner. The second one is an emergency certification for guardian angel. One of the most difficult positions to find. We have a young lady who worked there, went to school to become a teacher, and has everything but the praxis exams. So she has 2 praxis exams to pass, and then she'll gain her certification. So with her background and already knowing what that's like as far as an environment, and the fact that she's finished all of her coursework, I did approve, with your blessing, those 2 emergency certifications.
Okay. Any other questions on the consent agenda?
Did we manned the concession stand for the Spartans? Is that a new policy we're doing?
What's that?
The concession stands yesterday when they were using the field, we took care of that.
Yeah,
that new?
I think boosters ran.
That's new?
Well, typically they've done it.
Yeah, in the past they have,
but
that's why I was curious.
I don't think they wanted to do it this year with some of the things going on. They just didn't have enough people. So our boosters took that on and ran it yesterday, which was a great.
Yeah, one less thing to worry about.
And it was a great day for the boosters. They sold a lot of water. Any other questions? All right.
Ready? Mrs. Berger?
Yes.
Dr. Saviano?
Yes.
Mrs. Slate?
Yes.
Ms. Stricker?
Yes.
Mrs. Sullivan? Yes.
Okay, motion carries. On to our information portion. Dr. Stacy, do you have anything more to add on the superintendent report? Or?
I do. I have a couple of things. I will, we had a letter that was submitted also in support of masks, signed by several, looks like maybe 10 of our families. I will submit that to Ms. Lloyd Reed to become evidence and in the minutes, if that's okay. Second of all, I've asked Miss Nancy Grayson to come tonight and give you a quick and Nancy, I'm sorry, but typically we would have put you at the beginning, but
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Will I present his standing?
Absolutely.
Does she need to be at the mic?
Oh, here.
Trey.
Thank you. Good evening. Thank you, Superintendent Stacy, and our esteemed board members and parents and community members. My name's Nancy Grayson. I have the pleasure of serving as president of Horizon Community Funds of Northern Kentucky. We are a public charity, a community foundation that was formed in 2017, so just 4 years ago. There are 800 community foundations across the U.S. They've been around for well over 100 years. I think our board would agree. They wish that we would have formed this for Northern Kentucky maybe 20 or 30 years ago, but here we are, and we've seen a lot of success in these first 4 years. We've actually formed as a nonprofit to help raise resources to support the needs of Northern Kentucky, both now and in the future. So see us as a foundation that supports a wide variety of funds, a family of funds, if you will, where they can be as broad as unrestricted dollars for competitive grants, to our nonprofits, schools, churches in Northern Kentucky. We even have funds that are restricted for a specific purpose, such as for Relief Fund. We raised over $2.1 million to support pandemic relief in Northern Kentucky alone, and supported over 85,000 individuals to date through that fund. We partner with families, corporations as a more efficient alternative vehicle to a private foundation, so that we are a public charity that supports their grant making, whether it's, again, for a family or a corporate entity. And then what I'm here to talk to you very briefly about today is a growing area that are called designated or agency funds. I'm not going to get into the accounting logistics. It's included in your packet in terms of what the difference between the two are. It's originally the source of money, where the money comes from. But what we do as a foundation is help to raise awareness for a particular cause, school, church, or nonprofit organization, and in this case, ideally, Beechwood Independent School District, to help provide support financially for the programs, for any construction, campaign, fundraising that you might have, both for now and in the future. So this is really an opportunity for you to take advantage of partnering with a trusted community foundation to help raise dollars in the community, not only your immediate community, but the broader community, Northern Kentucky and beyond, to help provide support for your students now, 10, 20 years, and even for generations to come. And so I'm here to talk to you about how you would view us as a partner to your already wonderful foundation that you have, to the alumni organization that you have that's very active. We have over 30 types of funds that we've already started partnering with some schools, again, nonprofit organizations, to help increase charitable support for the things that they're trying to fund best. And so the opportunity that you have would be to create a fund, hopefully in the near future, where you would partner with us. We would own and manage the funds legally. They are invested to grow over time, restricted for that purpose that would serve Beechwood Independent Schools. And so think of us as a more sophisticated partner in fundraising for the work that your foundation and that your administration and that your alumni are doing. We process gifts of stock very readily. We do other assets as well, gifts of land, that type of thing. We have a board of 20 esteemed council members who manage our funds. And we also have an investment committee that manages oversight. So you have this extra fiduciary layer, which I think provides a lot of an opportunity and some reassurance to your donors, knowing that these funds won't be swept and used for other purposes. So they have to be used for this restriction that we have whenever we accept a gift. There are state entities that are partnering with us for this as well. Covington Parks, several of the conservancies locally, as I mentioned, other schools, Bellevue Independent School District, Notre Dame has a fund with us. The Ignite Institute, if you're familiar with the STEM Academy that's there, as the Toyota gift. And so looking at us as that trusted partner in fundraising, leveraging us, because as a community foundation in the state of Kentucky, probably one of the most significant attributes that you might gain through a partnership is through another tax credit. And this is not the 563 that we were just talking about, although we will be working, if that passes, to become an account granting organization for schools eligible. We are eligible as a community foundation to give state tax credits once applied and approved, to individuals in the state of Kentucky who provide gifts to endowed funds held by a community foundation. We're nationally accredited. We are approved by the state for this particular credit. And each year, this is a very attractive opportunity for you to grow endowed funds, and for those donors who get approved to make a gift up to $50,000 and get up to $10,000 in tax credits. That's dollar for dollar, below the line credit in addition to their federal tax deduction. So these are just some of the reasons why we have a lot of these types of funds that are growing. We've raised over $35 million to date in these first 3.5 to 4 years that we've been in existence, and have granted out over $15 million into our community. So obviously we're working hard to make sure that we're educating people on how to give back to the things that they care about the most. And for us, that's Northern Kentucky. So how do we build that culture of philanthropy? How do we partner with wonderful schools of excellence like Beechwood Independent Schools to make sure that you can maximize donor opportunity to get more dollars to come back and support your students in your building? I'd love to answer any questions you have. If you want to talk to me offline, just for the sake of time, I appreciate that as well. But we think this would be a really great opportunity, especially as you consider your strategic plan for the coming years and potential campaigns and other projects that you might have coming down the road. Thank you.
So just to add in language for even people at home, when we did the barn in the back, we raised $350,000 basically to build that add-on facility, and we found ways, but it was more difficult for us to make a good. We worked it out, but for everybody to get a taxable donation for the gift for that building. As we move into a new construction project, it's way more than a pole barn. We're obviously wanting to fundraise both locally and with the business partners that we have. And Nancy's organization that she helps oversee is a much cleaner, organized way to make sure that we treat any donor correctly. So I just, as an entry to the board, I just wanted Nancy to come present tonight and kind of give you a glimpse of what we're working at as we move into the second phase of our construction project, which definitely have some opportunities for fundraising.
Now, would that just be to donate to the school district, or to donate to our foundations or boosters, or?
Right now, we're looking
Alumni?
at donating to the school district.
Okay.
For a specific, so one thing that you want in development, restricted versus non-restricted.
Mm-hmm.
All right, restricted is when somebody gives a gift and they say, I just want it to go to, buying basketballs. And the only thing you can do is buy basketballs with this money. And others where they say you can use it for however, the board sees fit. So as we move into this project, we're obviously going to be trying to fundraise around a specific thing, building. But another thing that she brought up there is way more tied to estate planning and the ability to help set up an ongoing opportunity for anyone in the school district to not only just give to a charitable organization over the hill or across the river, if we do anything across the river, because it's more like an ocean to me from being somewhere else. But it gives an opportunity for people to include estate planning into their charitable giving. And I do, you all have heard me say that several times, I do think that is one area that we miss as an institution, is to really educating our base that you can get a great tax break, sometimes even better than giving another place to the institution itself. And you have the ability to do restricted or non-restricted through that type of opportunity with Nancy, which it's way more difficult to do that through us.
It allows you to focus on the things that you do best, which is educating, leading the school, and allow us to handle the back office of all the tax compliance and regulations, because we're the ones that are the entity that are reporting all of that.
Yes. So as we move forward, we'll have more conversations, but right now, if I were to have to do it today, my easy recommendation today would be to allow Nancy's organization to come in and help us with those areas for this future project. And just one example, let's say a hospital entity in close proximity wanted to be involved in naming a biomed lab. All right, that's a very complex issue for us, but and a very simple issue for her. Any other questions?
No.
Nancy, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All
Thanks
right,
for your time.
we'll follow up.
Thank you.
As far as other business, I think the only thing that I would like to continue to, other than the finance report, which Chrissy, I don't think that has anything new or,
No, that's what we talked about.
Yeah.
It's all normal stuff, very simple, and it's the first month, there's not a lot of data right now, but yeah. So, nothing unusual.
just from my end with the financial report, because we did not receive very much federal stimulus money for COVID relief. Our big watch is moving throughout the school year and watching expenditures and how that's going to affect our overall budget, and we'll continue to do that. And simple things like you don't think about, emergency days for teachers as opposed to sick days. Every one of those days builds up, and you know, we were at 6 figures on that. Testing, you don't necessarily think that every test you give is $55, and over the course of the year that adds up to 6 figures. Adding fans to have you know, ventilation and UV, sterilization, you know, costs money. Putting things to try to maintain and improve the ductwork and the ventilation in each classroom. Again, you know, money. So we're going to have to really watch this year, and we'll continue to update the board on that. If we move to if we're forced to make a move to different kind of distancing, then that we had to add staff. When we added staff, obviously that added money. So our stimulus relief didn't even cover the cost of reopening last year, much less pull over anything for this year. So that is a continuing watch for us. The second thing is continuing, as Ron said, to watch what local data we do have. And whether our mitigation strategies are doing a good enough job in relation to things that were discussed tonight, you know, by our clientele. Outside of that, I don't have anything else to add, other than it was extremely nice to be able to recognize Brad. Brad does, if you haven't been in Guardian Angel and you haven't seen Brad at work, not only Brad, but that whole group over there does amazing work. And so it was, and when I say it was an honor to bring him, that I'll stick with that. Also, Miss Ashley Ritchie is in the finals for the Elementary Teacher of the Year on the other side, and I think that is September the 9th. That's all I have.
And then you also had CJ and El Chica last week. They were recognized, right?
That's right. And please forgive me, I cannot remember what Next Generation Leader was Chica won. Yeah. Right. The Next Generation Leadership Awards. Sorry.
And before, since we do have a new board member, can we set up a time to meet over at Guardian Angel one day so we can like look? It's been a while.
That's actually on her.
That was on my list.
Her first meeting is next Friday with Christy and I, and then we'll work our way through the system. But yeah, we can expedite that anytime.
I think it'd be good for all of us to go over and.
Yeah.
And so, just so people listening, like, you know, you all know, but that is anybody who's become a ward of the state and been placed at DCCH as a resident. We actually, that school is not ran by DCCH, that school is ran by Beechwood. And those students are considered to be Beechwood students in the eyes of the state and in the eyes of our administration. So it is an opportunity for us to really do some good work with some kids that have had a rough run.
Okay. Anything else?
I don't have anything else.
Okay. Take a motion to make the agenda part of the official board minutes.
I'll make a motion to make the agenda part of the official board minutes.
Second.
Who's second? You're second. Oh.
You're faster than me.
Who's second?
I'll get there, I promise.
Mrs. Berger?
Yes.
Dr. Salmiano?
Yes.
Mrs. Slate?
Yes.
Ms. Stricker?
Yes.
Mrs. Selwyn?
Yes.
Okay, motion carries. Any new business, other business?
For everybody who doesn't know, Julian Sandberg got a huge scholarship from the Shot in a Million lottery,
Yes.
which is amazing.
That is huge.
Yes.
Good for him.
Yes, wonderful for him.
Yep. We have done a walkthrough of the facilities for home events and feel like we have a good plan. Just to reiterate, the plan is to hold every home event, even the Cupcake football game, which is probably going to be our biggest stretch. But we feel like we have a good plan in place. There are a couple of areas that we'll continue to watch that right now would be safety concerns that are supposed to be completed before the first September home football game, which is just our natural stressor. Soccer and some of the others would be great runs, but actually the Spartans that was a pretty good push this weekend.
Good.
So we feel like we have everything in decent shape. Just as a construction update, the steel should be completed hopefully by the end of the week. From steel, our next big hurdle is block, and block doesn't go nearly as fast as steel. So the biggest concern for us is making sure we have the number of block layers to maintain that pace, because if not, inclement weather can really put you behind. So the laying of block is going to be our next hurdle. If we get past that, now you're getting to the point where you're dried in, and anytime you're dried in, there's always work that can be done no matter what the weather is. So I'll continue to watch that. I continue to keep you updated on that progress.
So as far as logistics go for the first day of school, so if you're up at Kroger, it's coming across the field, is that and coming in this way? Is that where it's going to be?
It's still coming across down the steps, across the field, up the steps, into the back of the... to the side, right? Yeah, okay. If something magically improves and we can bring the elementary kids at the band entrance by the restrooms, I'm still keeping my fingers crossed.
The latest thing I saw was, I think, Justin's or somebody's map.
Oh, if it was a map, it was Justin.
Yeah.
He likes maps.
Well, I appreciate maps with arrows and telling you where to go, so.
If the sidewalks and everything get poured and the curbs get poured in, there is a chance that we could bring elementary kids into the band entrance, but that's just, we're going to have to see how that goes.
Now, will construction start after kids are in school every day?
It will start before kids are in school every day, and then they will take a break and drop off.
Okay.
Because remember, they're on 10-hour 410s.
Okay, so they're on. Okay. Anybody else have anything to add?
I would just like to thank the 7 individuals that decided to speak out tonight. Speaking for my fellow board members and Dr. Stacy, I struggle with this entire situation every day from my philosophical point of view. We weigh out all the data, we weigh out all the decision-making processes, and I can assure you that the 6 of us up here have one thing and one thing in common, and that's the safety of every child and every person that crosses the threshold of this institution. So it's a struggle for all of us, but please know that we do not take this lightly. This is a serious situation, and we want our children to get what they deserve. So please bear with us. Some people, it's difficult to please everybody, and it's a struggle. So please know that we're trying our best.
Thank you. Anybody else? You look like you're wanting to talk, so.
I was just going to echo sort of what Ron said. We appreciate everybody coming and giving their opinion. And I think one of the things we'd like you to keep in mind is that we are elected to follow the law. And we do that in every case. And in this case, it's our advice of our board attorney not to go with the recommendation, and we would not override that. And just on the flip side, if there becomes a mandate, it's law and we will follow it. But we want to thank you for coming and being respectful, like Dr. Stacy said. It's been a tough time for everybody.
Can I just ask which recommendation are we following? Because the July 29th stuff from the health department and the governor did recommend masking indoors and K through 12. Whose requirement are you technically using here? As a recommendation. You said you were following recommendations.
Those 3 agencies, the governor, the Kentucky Department of, you ask a question. If you want me to answer it, I'll answer it, or you can just keep talking. You pick. the governor, the Kentucky Department of Public Health, the Northern Kentucky Health Department. All three have the ability to put a requirement in place.
So the only way we would require masks here would be if they mandated it, even though they recommend it, all three of them recommend it, until any one of them mandates it, we would.
Based on the ruling from the Kentucky Supreme Court, where we have to follow recommendations and mandates, that's correct.
Okay, but if it's a you agree that the current recommendations are to wear masks, right? Like all three of those things say to wear masks indoors.
All three of those recommend to wear masks,
And we are.
which we are echoing that
Yep.
by saying that we're recommending masks indoors.
So unless they say that they. Require. Okay, so the health department called, they said they're referring to the school board, and if they're gonna require it, we want them to wear masks. And we're saying that we're referring to the health department, I'm just.
Legally, they have the authority to issue the mandate. They have that authority.
Okay, so if
This
the-
board does not.
But if the governor and the health department are recommending for all people indoors to wear the mask, then that the recommendation is for all to wear the mask, right?
It's not a requirement.
So is the school board
Yes.
recommending masking?
I mean, the
Yes.
language that we put out, even on the 9th, says that everybody has that, that opportunity to do what their parent and their pediatrician recommends. I mean, that's what I'm doing. I called my kid's doctor and said, what should my kids do when they go back to school?
So then we're following the mandate, not the recommendation.
Yes.
We're following both. So, I mean, it's simple. Can I suspend a kid that doesn't come into school with a mask on? And I'm not going to get into, because the meeting's getting ready to close, but I'll be more than happy to stay after. If I can't suspend a kid, then I can't require. And I can't suspend a kid based on a recommendation. So I go back to, as it currently sits, my recommendation to this board based on our illegal, everything. And I know some places have, and that makes it really difficult. I just don't know how they're doing it when their liability insurance agency is saying not to, and my board attorney saying not to. I mean, guys, I'm not, I still, I mean, as much as I have an opinion myself, I still have the opportunity to want to stay employed. And last year I was told if I didn't follow the letter, that I could be removed. It was very, very straightforward. If you don't follow this specific specific word by word, you can be removed.
So we could at least word it so carefully showing they recommend that they wear masks.
Yeah.
That is the way it's
If
worded.
if you read the language, that's the way it's worded.
Honestly, I'm a mask person, as you can probably tell. The reason I didn't vote for mandatory masks is because as a board, our attorney says we're overstepping our bounds by requiring everybody to wear a mask. But I do strongly recommend that everybody wears a mask. But I can't make people do that. It's outside of my bounds of what I'm allowed to do. So I understand where you're coming from. I understand where other people are coming from. I have my own beliefs, but I'm required to do what's we're bound by law. And according to our attorney, we would be overstepping our bounds by doing this. I'm sorry, you said?
I mean,
But that is actually not our, that comes from the SPDM councils. Yeah. So if the health department mandates it or strikes down this proposal, then.
I don't, based on their ability to do so, and based on the Kentucky Supreme Court, I would have no authority to challenge that.
All right, take a motion to adjourn.
I'll make the motion to adjourn.
I will second. Thank you, everyone, for coming this evening.